Hi, let's start this scheduling section with an introduction about auto-scaling. So this section should be quite easy to understand. So let's dive in. First, AWS auto-scaling is a feature that allows you to automatically adjust the number of resources in use based on predefined conditions or in response to changing demand. The primary goal of auto-scaling is to ensure that you have the right number of resources available to handle the current workload efficiently and cost effectively. You have multiple benefits by using autoscaling. So first is scalability. Autoscaling helps you scale out, meaning you add resources to handle increased load, or you can also scale in, meaning remove resources when the demand decreases. You also have high availability. So by automatically replacing unhealthy instances, autoscaling helps maintain the availability of your application. Then you have cost efficiency because autoscaling helps optimize cost by ensuring that you pay only for the resources you need. It reduces the need for over-provisioning resources to handle peak loads. And finally, automatic management. So autoscaling can be configured to automatically manage the life cycle of your resources, including launching, terminating, and maintaining a specified number of instances. So let's see an example of a basic web application running on AWS. So you can see that during the beginning and end of the week, usage of the application is minimal, so on Sunday and Saturday, but the rest of the week, during the middle of the week, the demand of the application increases significantly. So the capacity needed is much higher here. You have three options. Option one, you add enough servers so that the application always has enough capacity to meet demand. So you take your max capacity needed and you provision the capacity for all the days. And you can see here that you will lose some money because there will be unused capacity here and you are paying this much here for nothing. Option two, you have enough capacity to handle the average demand on the application. So you can see that you will pay less money here. You will provision the capacity on the average here, but at some point, you will still be losing some money here and here, and you will be under capacity here, meaning that for your web application, people might get a poor experience at your website and get a slow one. And then option three, you can also add new instances to the application only when necessary and terminate them when they are no longer needed. So this is auto scaling. And you can see that it adjusts the capacity just as needed here. So you're never gonna be under capacity and you are not gonna pay here for unused capacity. You have two different types of scaling strategies. So the first one is dynamic scaling, which creates target tracking scaling policies for the resources in your scaling plan. And here the intention is to provide enough capacity to maintain utilization at the target value specified. So you can see that without dynamic scaling here, the utilization is moving and the capacity is always the same. And with dynamic scaling, you can see that it's the opposite here. One example, you can configure your scaling plan to keep the number of tasks that your ECS service runs at 75% of CPU. So this is one example. And in this case, when the CPU utilization of your service exceeds 75%, then your scaling policy adds another task to help out with the increased load. This is another example of scaling policies. So you can select here target tracking scaling policy and put your metric on average CPU utilization and select the target value here, 10 or 50. The second scaling strategy here is to use predictive scaling, which uses machine learning to analyze each resource historical workload here and then generate a forecast. And using the forecast, predictive scaling generates scheduled scaling actions. You can see here to make sure that the resource capacity is available before your application needs it. So, for example, you can enable predictive scaling and configure your scaling strategy to keep the average CPU utilization of your auto-scaling group at 50%. Then your forecast calls for traffic spikes to occur every day at 8 o'clock. And then your scaling plans create the future scaling actions to make sure that your auto-scaling group is ready to handle the traffic ahead of time. And you have one example here. So you can see here that there is a spike here and here. So this is like for every day of the week. And it will follow the same pattern. So where can you save some money by using auto-scaling? So here's a list of services. First, of course, you have the EC2 instances, but you also have ECS, EKS, ARDS. You have also DynamoDB, SQS, Lambda, SageMaker, and some more.